Sports Desk. Jimmy is the key for the Jays in game number 4. Kelly Gruber brings it on home to give Toronto a 3-1 series lead. And Canadian fans go crazy in anticipation of game 5 and a possible clinch at the Dome.
Sports Desk is brought to you by Makita Canada Incorporated, Canada's leading manufacturer of professional power tools, and by Jack Fraser, quality menswear every day.
Hello everyone and welcome to this edition of Sports Desk. I'm Brendan Connor and awfully glad you could join us for this edition. We have lots in store today, including 8 teams in action across the NHL, including sports betting expanding its act into Ontario, and some of the country's top sports figures received the nation's highest honor. But we are going to start things off, obviously, with baseball and game number 4 of the World Series, in which the Jays went in carrying a 2-1 lead in games, and both the Jays and the Braves pinned their hopes on a couple of lefties. Tom Glavine for Atlanta, Jimmy Key for the Blue Jays. Let's take a look as Jimmy Key on the hill, and his first batter got on, Otis Nixon, but he erased him pretty quickly with a great pickoff move, and Jimmy Key is known for that. Top of the second inning, Key records his first World Series strikeout as he blows one past Brian Hunter. Hunter's not too happy about that. Bottom of the second, Tom Glavine also throwing well. You saw the grip on this ball. John Olerud will wave at it and go down on strikes. No score after 2. Bottom of the third, the Jays do get to Glavine as Pat Borders gets around on him and hits a solo shot just outside the park. Borders has a hit in every postseason game so far. 1-0 Toronto. Toronto's homered in 10 straight postseason games. Still in the third, 2 on, 1 out. Toronto threatening, but Carter's line drive is caught by Blauser. They double up Devon White. Meanwhile, Jimmy Key continues to shine. Here it's Jeff Blauser going down on strikes. Key is pitching one of the great games of his career. In the 5th inning, a tough hitter is Dave Justice. He also goes down on a big curveball. Still 1-0 after 5. Bottom of the 6th inning, Toronto threatening again. First and third, Candy Maldonado. He K's on this 1-2 pitch. Was this a strike? You check it out. Bottom of the 7th now. Gruber on second. Devon White will single to left field. They send Gruber all the way home, and he will come through with a hard head-first slide. The throw is cut off. He didn't even need the slide. 2-0 Jays after 7. Top of the 8th. Atlanta has runners on the corners. 1 out. Lemke hits a shot. He gets a piece of it. Watch the play by Gruber. Barehands it. Throws out the runner at first. Atlanta does get a run, though. 2-1 ball game. Jimmy Key leaves the game. Standing ovation. A great performance. Dwayne Ward is in. Very tough reliever. He gets Jeff Blauser to ground out. Nice play there by Olerud. And Bobby Cox is on the bench. He's got 2 solid left-handed hitters, but he elects not to use Deion Sanders nor Sid Bream. Wonder why. On to the 9th now. Tom Henke on the hill. First batter he faces Terry Pendleton. Misses the forkball. Goodbye. And it was all up to Dave Justice, but he will pop up to left field. Maldonado is there underneath it. And Maldonado puts the glove on it and puts the close on game number 4, and maybe the Braves won't have a home game until April '93 because maybe the Blue Jays will wrap it up on Thursday night. A 2-1 final, the Blue Jays at the Dome in game 4, and the Jays have a 3-1 series lead now. Jimmy Key got the win. Tom Glavine lost. Henke another save. Pat Borders with a home run. The Blue Jays bullpen continues to do wonderful work, has allowed no runs and just 1 hit over 9 innings. Now let's go to Rod Smith for the post-game story from game number 4. Rod?
Brendan, Jimmy Key was the odd man out in the American League Championship when the Jays decided to go to a 3-man rotation. But because some arms got tired, manager Cito Gaston decided to put Key in this critical Game 4 of the World Series. And like many of Gaston's moves so far, this one was brilliant. Key was brilliant, holding the Atlanta bats in check most of the way and making a key play in the first inning by picking off the speedy Otis Nixon at first base.
I think it made a statement, right off the bat. If he goes and steals that base, and they, say, hey, we can steal on you too. And I was very. It was one of my focuses. If Otis did get on a couple of the other guys to make sure they don't get a stolen base early in the game.
Jimmy's got a very good move over there, and I hadn't seen him before, and he almost picked me off. Not only one time did he get me, but he almost got me again earlier. But he's got a very good move. They talking about they can't hold guys good. This guy's tough to run on.
I know when I told Jimmy that he was going to be one of the starters, he was quite pleased. And as he said up here, he's one of the guys that have been here as long as I have, trying to get to where we are now. It's not over. Hopefully we'll win one more ball game, and we'll finally reach that goal that we've been trying for so long and so hard.
What do you remember about Jimmy Key when you managed him?
Well, he helped me stick around here for a few years by the way he pitched. I remember him as a great pitcher, and he looked every bit as good tonight as he did years ago. Probably hadn't had the best year of his career, but he certainly pitched great tonight. He had excellent stuff.
You hit that ball. Were you thinking it might have gone foul? It was close.
I thought it was going to go foul. I didn't think it was going to get out of the park either. I hit it a little bit out in front of it. And I took off running to the first base. I didn't watch it get out of here. I was maybe hoping to get 2 bases out of it.
I don't think it's a case that we're flat. We're just, nothing's happening for us. You know, everybody's ready to play and everybody's fired up, and you know, we very easily could have won game 2, and then last night we hit the ball hard, but we didn't get too much to show for it. They made some great defensive plays, and we made some base running mistakes.
If this does turn out to be your last game as a Blue Jay, was this your finest hour?
Probably. Yeah, this is the most satisfying moment in my career, to be able to win a World Series game. And you want the opportunity to play on. There's a lot of players that never get a chance to play in the World Series, and to have one of your better performances, it makes it that much more special.
As he left the Skydome mound in the 8th inning, Jimmy Key tipped his hat to a crowd of more than 50,000 standing on its feet. Not only have they witnessed the finest hour of his Blue Jay career, but perhaps his last too. Jimmy Key's a free agent at the end of this season and may not return. On this night, he pitched his first World Series victory. On Thursday night, he and his teammates may have earned a World Series ring. Rod Smith, TSN, in Toronto.
Thank you, Rod. Let's check out the pitching matchup for Thursday night at the Skydome. Could be the clincher. Jack Morris hasn't been great in postseason play. Did have the 21 wins. Does have the 2 World Series rings. He'll go for Toronto. That's what the Jays wanted. Atlanta will go with their ace, the guy who has been very good for them in postseason, John Smoltz, with that 2-0 record. Well, with their win in game number 4, the Blue Jays are one step closer, of course, to giving Toronto fans a World Series victory and the people of Canada an excuse to celebrate. A 3-1 series lead, and nobody's talking about Kansas City and the big fold-up of 85. No, Toronto fans are ready to party. And our own Gino Reda was down at the Skydome after Game 4.
You're going to win in 5. Tomorrow night, Morris shuts them down, we win. We're going home. It's going to be right here in Canada. We bring it home. Toronto's number 1, the Jays, all the way, World Series champ. I think the Jays are going to close it out tomorrow night. The next time somebody from Toronto goes to Atlanta for an athletic event, it'll be the '96 Olympics. We're going to win it in 5 games. 5 games! Tomorrow night, we're done. We're done. What a team! What a city! What a dog!
Prime Minister of Canada.
We got one more game to go. We'll bring it back to Atlanta.
It's not over till it's over. One more game. We're back in Atlanta.
Well, the Blue Jays fans making their way home, completely elated. And why not? Their Jays just need one more win with 3 games to go to win their first ever World Series title. You know, looks like he needs the shoulder pads there. Well, time to take a short break here on Sports Desk, but still...
First News with Mike Anscombe and the Global News Team.
One more win, and the Blue Jays are world champions. Start your own collection of referendum cards. And Mac meets up with superstars Robert De Niro and Jessica Lange.
Good afternoon. Baseball history could be made just a few hours from now. The Blue Jays are just 1 win away from Canada's first ever World Series championship following a win last night against the Atlanta Braves. The big story, a gutsy effort from a Blue Jay veteran named Jimmy Key. His first postseason game was a sparkling outing, and it helped allow the Jays to win, lead the Jays to win, despite scoring only 2 runs. And another strong performance from relievers Dwayne Ward and Tom Henke nailed down the victory.
Maldonado is there. The Blue Jays win, and they lead the World Series 3 games to 1.
Global Sean O'Shea is standing by live at the Sky Dome with more on tonight's game. Sean?
Well, Mike, actually it was April 7th, 1977 when the Blue Jays played for the first time. So this is a historic day, and I'm joined outside Sky Dome right now by one of the men who was instrumental in getting professional baseball into Toronto, and I'm joined by Mr. Paul Godfrey. Think back to the mid-'70s when you were trying to get professional baseball here. And what does this day, the fact that they have come this far, mean to you?
Well, it's an absolute thrill. I didn't think we'd get here this quick. The Toronto Blue Jays have been a great organization both on the field and in the front office. They've not only been great corporate citizens in working with Toronto, but they provided a product that is so successful when you can draw 4 million people and be the pride of all baseball on both sides of the border. That's just outstanding, whether you make the World Series or not.
We've heard a lot about the economic benefits of this World Series and of baseball. Are those projections, are they valid in your opinion? Are we getting a lot out of this baseball team for the cost of the Sky Dome and various other public money?
In fact, I think the results of the World Series, the benefits are understated. I think for years to come, people who have never really heard of Toronto or even thought about coming to Toronto will suddenly make Toronto their destination point. I think the benefits of Toronto and the World Series, the result of it is going to be phenomenal.
You wanted a convention center and you wanted professional baseball. Which was a more significant accomplishment of the things that you wanted here?
Well, I think the baseball team and the Dome Stadium,
got the Dome.
And the Dome Stadium, that package is just hard to beat in everybody's mind because it makes impacts on both sides of the border and also making internationally. In fact, when you consider that this game tonight will probably be viewed in about 60 different countries, I think that impact alone for Toronto is tremendous.
Okay, do you think this is the last ball game of the year?
Well, we're all keeping our fingers crossed. We're all very positive. I know the ball club doesn't want to go back to Atlanta, so let's win it in front of the home fans.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul Godfrey. Mike, back to the studio to you.
Okay, Sean, it's still 3 hours before game time, but we can see behind you fans have already started to line up outside the Sky Dome in anticipation of tonight's game. A couple of questions. First of all, should the Jays win, the tremendous celebration which will ensue, and secondly, the security precautions to keep everything under lid.
Okay, the parties will be through the streets. The police are preparing to block off sections of Yonge Street in the event that there's a victory tonight, and they're doing those preparations right now with barricades. There'll be parties right out here on Yonge Street. Within Sky Dome, all the restaurants will have various parties going on. If you've got a VIP pass, you'll get into one party. If you have a media pass, you might get into another party. If you're a fan, you might get into another party. So party, party, party. It's going to be going on throughout here today. And then tomorrow, in the event that the Blue Jays win, there'll be a parade that'll be coming down and ending up here at Sky Dome. And so the ultimate party, I guess, will be about 12 hours afterward, and that'll be in front of all the 40,000 or some thousand fans at Sky Dome. So if, in fact, the Blue Jays are able to win it tonight, there'll be a big celebration that'll go on right through tomorrow.
You don't have an extra VIP pass that I could maybe borrow for just a few hours tonight, huh?
We'll have to think about that, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
All right, Mike.
As you have heard throughout this series, baseball's Fall Classic has truly become an international event. And Global's European correspondent Bruce Garvey has the story now from Mary Olding.
In the middle of London, historic Covent Garden, a home away from home for expatriate Canadians, especially at emotional times such as Christmas or the World Series. Around the corner from the Royal Opera House, you can listen to Anne Murray sing the national anthem and indulge in a little old-fashioned Blue Jay patriotism. And these days, business has never been better. Ball fans in Britain can either sit up and watch the games live on a satellite dish sports channel and get to bed at 5 a.m., or stop by the Maple Leaf Pub and watch a taped version of last night's game. They bring in all the big ones here, the Stanley Cup, the Grey Cup, but there's never been anything quite like this World Series.
This is absolutely amazing. This has got to be, I would say, probably better than the Stanley Cup even. Absolutely unbelievable, the crowd tonight.
The Canadian draft flows, and if it's not the Sky Dome, then this week it's just about the next best thing.
The only thing I miss about Toronto is those Blue Jays, and they're finally at the big show.
Can you believe they're in the series?
It's great. I was at Game 6 in Toronto, back for Thanksgiving, and saw them clinch it. Brilliant.
This is fantastic. I mean, we have Canadians here. We're all sitting, I don't know where there was one guy with an Atlanta Braves hat. I think he left already. 1-0 already for Joe Carter. We're doing fine. We're doing fine.
And when Kelly Gruber pops one in Game 3, you'd have thought you were watching the game on Yonge Street. As they're saying in London these days, go Jays go. For Global News, I'm Bruce Garvey at the World Series in London.
Blue Jay fans on Earth are not the only Canadians flying high today. Astronaut Steve McLean from Nepean, Ontario, became the third Canadian in space.
Tonight. Justice with a high fly ball, not very deep. Maldonado is there. The Blue Jays win. Just one more.
Good evening, I'm Jeffrey Kofman. Welcome to a special edition of CBC at 6, live from Sky Dome. In a few hours' time, the Toronto Blue Jays play the Atlanta Braves in what some are calling the most important baseball game ever played in this country. A Jays win, and they take the World Series. And that would set off one of the biggest parties the city has ever seen, a party that's already underway around the Dome and will continue as the game goes on. We have extensive coverage throughout this hour, and we begin with Bruce Dowbiggin inside the Dome. Bruce?
Well, Jeffrey, I think it's lucky that this is the final baseball game of the season here in Toronto. I don't think the fans here could take any more tension. They're all going to have one massive tranquilizer when this is over and catch up on their sleep. Yes, you're right. Tonight is the possible night of the clinching, the first ever World Championship for a Canadian baseball team, for the Toronto Blue Jays specifically. I don't think there could be any greater portent tonight than the fact that everybody is here excited, and Jack Morris is on the mound, the man who clinched it for the Blue Jays last year. Now, half the reason for the optimism, of course, yet another nail-biter last night down at the Dome, where the Blue Jays, more miracles than you can count on the fingers of one hand, managed to pull out another one-run victory. Let's go to the tape and we'll find out. Of course, last night, before they put a hurting on the Braves, the Toronto Blue Jays had some hurting music. And then Jimmy Key picking off Otis Nixon at first base. Otis, I am no criminal. No, I guess not. He didn't get second base. A great outing by Tom Glavine, but a mistake here to Pat Borders. This home run in the third inning off the foul pole gave the Blue Jays a 1-0 lead, and for a long time it looked like that was all that was going to be needed to stand up for the Blue Jays win. Jimmy Key, just masterful. One of the old Blue Jays, one of the Blue Jays who's known success and failure with this team, and he covered himself with glory in what might be his final outing as a Blue Jay. Devon White singles home the second run of the game for the Blue Jays, gives them the insurance marker which they eventually need. Kelly Gruber, the belly flop slide at first base, at least at home, scrapes his chin, gets dirty, but Jimmy Key knew what to do when things got tough. He deflects the ball here to Gruber, out at first, and the Blue Jays get out of the inning, and they are still only ahead by one run. Dwayne Ward, however, comes in the ninth inning. The pass ball here sets up the Braves for the potential tying run, and the crowd at the Dome, uh-oh, what's going to happen? But Ward does the job. He gets Jeff Blauser to ground out to John Olerud, and the Blue Jays preserve the 2-1 lead into the ninth, and that's Tom Henke time. He comes on. David Justice pops up to left field. That's all the Blue Jays need. That's all she wrote. It's a 3-1 lead when the game is over, and the Blue Jays on the verge of their first ever championship. And as I say, Toronto on the verge, I'm sure, of a nervous breakdown. Might even be the best thing you can get for this game thing, to go back to Atlanta and give people a chance to settle down. But if the Blue Jays win, there'll be one heck of a parade here in town. And, of course, all over town, people are getting excited about that. And one of the people who'll be monitoring the excitement in this city is Lorne Madelon, and he's standing by now live. Lorne.
All right, Bruce. Well, outside, the party has already begun to take shape, take form. A lot of hopes right now as the Blue Jays get ready for what could be a potentially deciding game. Now, of course, this World Series has transformed what many call a typically conservative city of Toronto into a metropolitan area that is ready to explode. In fact, the city has taken on a carnival-like atmosphere. We get more on that story now from Barb Andrusek.
Jays all the way! Woo-hoo! Blue Jays! Yeah!
Mardi Gras. The nearby area around the Sky Dome is alive with cheer and song.
Most of the 52,000 fans that are now gathering here will soon pour into the dome chanting "Go Blue Jays." A victory by Toronto tonight will mark 1992 as the year America's game crowned its champion here in Canada for the first time ever. History is in the making, and everybody here is a part of it.
Hundreds of fans gathered outside the Dome's Hard Rock Cafe for the best deal in town. If you can get in, $25 gives you a bird's eye view of the game. The snag is you had to get here awfully early.
Show your number! Show your number!
The guy offered him $400 for his number one. A little tiny magic marker that says number one is worth $400 in Toronto.
Been here since about 8 o'clock this morning. We left February 3rd. We're waiting to go into Hard Rock Cafe to watch the Jays win the series tonight.
We came here at 2 this morning. This is the only way to see history. We're here to see the Jays. We're not selling out. We're going to be there all night.
I think the Toronto Blue Jays are the greatest team in the world. They're going to win it tonight. I'm from Buffalo, New York.
We're number one! World Series!
For CBC Sports, I'm Barbara Andrusek at the Sky Dome.
All right, and outside again, as I say, people starting to gather, a real mood of anticipation out here, Bruce. Let's go back inside where it's a little warmer to you.
Well, it's a little bit cooler than it usually is in the Dome. In fact, they're leaving the doors open here a little bit before the game so the heat doesn't build up too much and make it too unpleasant. Now, anytime there's a winner around, everybody wants to get on board. And one element of the Toronto population that is glad to be on board the Blue Jay Express is the business community. And Jeannie Lee has more on that.
The World Series has opened up fists shut tight by the recession.
I'm going to save some beer money, so I better use plastic.
Well, I can't believe it. I keep saying pinch me. I just don't believe it. It's unbelievable.
Ben Friedman parked a rented truck outside his souvenir store so he could restock shelves as fast as customers could clear them.
Boom. It's a boon for anybody connected to the Blue Jays in any way.
Fans that don't have tickets to witness history wanted at least an artifact.
Oh, I think I've spent about $30 in T-shirts and paraphernalia, that sort of thing. Not sure I'm going to buy this, though. But
Shot on the license plate, because that's what we want the Jays to do tonight.
If the Jays do well tonight, a lot of folks are ready to do the same.
Especially tonight, there'll be a lot of parties after the game, you know. This could be the big night.
So how's it been for business and tips?
Fabulous, fabulous. The more they win, the bigger the tips seem to be.
You getting ready to make a bundle?
Oh, yeah. Tonight's going to be the night.
There's a lot of Americans in town, right? And they're spending like crazy, too.
So what does this mean, an extra month's rent on this place, or what? I just want to get
Yeah, I would say so, sure.
How's business?
Oh, all right.
Is the hotel full?
I guess so.
You're busy. In fact, several downtown hotels report being booked solid most of this week. And Metro's Tourism and Convention Association figures out-of-towners have spent $11 million this World Series. Mike Accordino from Pennsylvania admits he's dropped a bundle.
Yesterday, I got up at about 10 o'clock and I was shopping all day till the game started. Then I just was shopping after the game at Sky Dome and, you know, around.
Only $5, guys. The only ones like it in town. They're not going to last long. They're really not.
And on this playing field outside the Dome, Free Enterprise is hitting a home run.
I sold blue carnations after the game last night, Blue Jay fans.
Did well?
Yeah, sold all of them.
Hey, I retire tomorrow.
Everyone loves a winner, especially if the winner helps them make a buck. And even if not, one claims fans eat before coming to night games, so business is down, but he isn't.
Anyway, it's a lot of fun and the Blues are doing great and who cares?
Jeannie Lee, CBC News, Toronto.
Makes you kind of hungry. Now, tonight, of course, is a special night for baseball fans, but it's also going to be a very special night for a large group of former NHL stars. About a year and a half ago, a group of 7 NHL players launched a lawsuit against the NHL and the NHL Pension Society to determine the outcome of what should happen with surpluses within the pension fund. Well, today they got their news, and it was good news.
In June, 70-minute edition of Sports Desk. It's right on target. Tonight on Real TV, TSN.
on Sports Desk. Happy Jack looks to pitch his way to back-to-back World Series. We'll have live reports. Rod Smith is at Skydome as preparations continue. And off the field, Toronto gets set to beef up security for hoped-for celebrations tonight.
Sports Desk is brought to you by Motomaster, Canada's #1 selling replacement parts, and by Weiser Locks, quality locks made for Canadians by Canadians.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Early Report. I'm Jim Van Horn. It may be over tonight. The Toronto Blue Jays, with a 3-1 lead over the Atlanta Braves, can become the first Canadian team to win the World Series at Skydome. The anticipation, drama, and excitement levels have been building since the teams returned to Toronto tied at 1 game each. And with each successive victory, the temperature has risen. By the time the first pitch is thrown out tonight around 8:30 Eastern, 51,000-plus fans should be at fever pitch. Rod Smith joins us now from Skydome. Rod, Bobby Cox said after Game 4 that the Braves are looking at their situation as going out and having to win 3 straight. That's obvious. But against the Jays, it's easier said than done.
It certainly is, Jim. Easier said than done. In the history of the World Series, only 5 teams have come from 3-1 down back to win it. The last time, in 1985, the Kansas City Royals were down 3-1 to the St. Louis Cardinals. They came back and won it in 7 games, wishing it did go 70 games. The Pittsburgh Pirates, last team to do it back in 79, when Baltimore had a 3-1 series lead. But the way the pitching has been going, the bullpens, the difference in the bullpens especially, I would think that Toronto would have a tough time blowing this 3-1 lead, and they would love dearly to wrap it up tonight. And Jack Morris of the Jays would love dearly to be the one wrapping it up. He hasn't had a great playoff, but he is certainly ready tonight, going on 4 days rest against Atlanta's John Smoltz, who is on only 3 days rest.
Pat Gillick and the rest of the Blue Jays brass couldn't have planned it better. It was on a cold day last December that the Jays convinced the most valuable player of the World Series to sign his name to a $10 million contract.
I look forward to the new challenges here in Canada. I'm excited about the possibility of winning another World Series here.
Jack Morris was going to be the man who would finally bring a World Series championship to Toronto. Now, 10 months later, the Jays' ideal scenario has come to life.
I thought in my mind that this could happen. I thought it could happen last year, and therefore I've been fortunate that 2 years in a row I thought something like this could happen. Maybe you guys should ask me before you call Vegas next time.
Tonight's pitching matchup is a rematch of last year's legendary 7th game of the World Series that saw Morris outlast John Smoltz. Morris tossed 10 shutout innings to get the win. Smoltz was the hard luck loser. He worked 7 1/3 scoreless frames and watched the Twins celebrate their 2nd World Series championship. Smoltz has been superb throughout this year's postseason as well. He was the MVP of the National League Championship Series, and he pitched into the 8th inning of Game 2 against the Blue Jays on Sunday. Morris was expected to be Toronto's big winner in the postseason, but he's 0-2 in 3 starts.
Yeah, this is adversity I've at this time of year I've never dealt with, because everything's been success for me up until this year. But I guess I can appreciate it more now than I could when I was younger, because I feel very fortunate that I'm having the opportunity to be here. There's a lot of guys at home wishing they were playing in the World Series.
And no doubt all of Canada will be watching at home tonight as well.
In many ways, Smoltz versus Morris is the dream matchup for this World Series, and joining me now to discuss this, ESPN baseball analyst Peter Gammons. Peter, I would think this is what the Blue Jays got Jack Morris for.
Yeah, very definitely. When he came in today, he seemed so excited about this. I mean, he loves the stage. He loves to have the chance to clinch it. And, I mean, he has not pitched that well in the last 2 games. I thought in Atlanta he didn't use his fastball anywhere near as much as he normally did. My guess is he'll come out here sky high tonight. And unless Smoltz pitches a masterpiece, I really believe that Jack will finish this thing.
John Smoltz, though, he's been the workhorse of that staff. I mean, all 3 in the rotation have been so strong. Glavine going 8 innings again. Has that surprised you that they've been able to keep bouncing back? Because their bullpen really isn't all that strong.
No, but Smoltz is a great pitcher. Glavine is a great pitcher with incredible heart. So is Smoltz. The only thing is now this is 4 straight times on 3 days rest, and Smoltz puts a lot of energy into it. And the thing is, if he tires in the 6th or 7th inning, Bobby Cox seems so afraid of that bullpen. You wonder a little bit, is Smoltz going to have to go out and do what Glavine did? I'm not sure he can. I mean, he may, because he's been just an incredible money pitcher over the last 2 years, but it's a lot to ask of him, and it's, you know, it really is. It really seems as if Bobby thinks everybody out there now is Joey McLaughlin. Yeah.
Yeah, we all remember Joey McLaughlin, those who followed the Blue Jays. Peter, it just seems that this is not really a 3-1 series because the games have been so close. I mean, are the Blue Jays really that much better than the Atlanta Braves right now?
Not at all, but I think it says a lot about the Blue Jays. I think the 2 series that they played against Oakland and Atlanta, except for the last game, they've all been in the playoffs. They've all been nail-biters, and the Blue Jays have played so well in them. I mean, part of it's a function of having the best bullpen in baseball, but another function is that they've got a lot of guys who have executed very well, had a lot of great at-bats. I mean, even if it's Candy Maldonado fouling off 5 pitches in a key situation, or Dave Winfield bunting, or Olerud with a key thing, they have played great fundamental baseball, which is a tremendous reflection on the manager. I mean, the baseball they have played has been almost calculated. I mean, you know, it's easy for us to sit upstairs and say, this guy should do this, this guy should be able to do this under pressure, but there's so much emotion involved, you don't see it a lot, but the Blue Jays have played under a great deal of, they've played like a team that's been in the World Series 3 or 4 straight years, and I give them a lot of credit for that. I think that's the one thing people all around baseball have been most impressed by, their fundamentals.
Let me just ask you one other thing. I know it is not over yet. We've only finished 4 games, and it could go 7. You never know. Who would be your MVP right now? It seems like it'd be very difficult to pick.
Very difficult. To me, it would be between Borders and Ward. I mean, I think Ward is such an intimidating factor in this series, but Borders has had a great series, too. You know, there's another thing, though. 1 to 9, they've had guys contributing all throughout the 2 series, and I think that's a very important thing. I mean, every person on this team has contributed one way or another. If they do win it, it's going to be a great thing 10 years from now to look back, whether it's Derek Bell getting on base in front of Ed Sprague or whatever. Everybody on this team is going to be able to say, gee, I had something to do with that.
Thanks a lot, Peter.
Okay.
ESPN baseball analyst Peter Gammons, and it is going to be difficult to pick an MVP if the Blue Jays go on to win the World Series because, as Peter said, everyone on this team has contributed.
All the way since September 1st, we've really been playing good, and we've really come together as a team, and we've kind of gelled at the right time. So we need to win one more game.
It's been a total team effort. Roberto Alomar, Joe Carter, and Dave Winfield have combined for just 8 hits and 41 at-bats through the first 4 games of the series. The hired guns, Morris and Cone, struggled on the mound in games 1 and 2. But the team has got 2 wins from Dwayne Ward, 2 saves from Tom Henke, a clutch hit from Candy Maldonado, and a game-saving play from John Olerud. Everyone has contributed to the cause, and the team is just 1 win away from its first World Championship. Alomar, Morris, or Carter may receive the spotlight tonight, but don't forget about the players who set the stage.
It really has been a team effort for the Blue Jays, especially in the World Series. And joining me now, first base coach Bob Baylor, who is around with the Jays since day 1. Now, I know it isn't over yet, but do you get a real sense of history here, especially for someone who was there when this poor franchise started back in 1977?
Well, I think there's already a sense of history. I mean, in the World Series, really putting on a show for the fans because these games are exciting. We'd have loved to have had a game like this in 77. Any one of these games, they've been, you know, nip and tuck, good defense, good pitching, clutch hitting, just great.
Will you, if you do go on to win this World Series, perhaps as early as tonight, will you sort of sit back, just yourself, and just think of, you know, those moments, the snow and Exhibition Stadium against the Chicago White Sox?
Well, it's funny, you know, the first game back here, the first pitch that was thrown, right away I reminded myself of Bill Singer's first pitch at Exhibition Stadium. I don't know why. I guess it was the excitement, the build-up, you know, the crowd response. And it was the same thing back then, the excitement of that first pitch. A different kind now, you know, we're talking just getting a baseball team opposed to a World Series, but I noticed the same excitement, the build-up, the expectation, and for one short second, I look back to 77.
Bob, we were talking about how difficult it would be to pick a most valuable player for this Blue Jay team so far. Really, especially in the World Series, there have been so many individuals contributing.
Sure has. You know, Kelly Gruber, to me, this guy has battled through a rough season for him, and I did a breakfast thing the other day, and I said, you know, one of these games, Kelly Gruber is going to help win in a big way, and he did. And I don't think he's done yet. Devon White, best catch I ever saw, regardless of World Series, spring training, anything. And at that moment, that was the game right there. And, you know, my choice is Cito Gaston, though. An MVP. He's done a great job keeping everybody on an even keel, happy, playing hard. So that would eliminate the tough choices among the players. So Cito would be my MVP.
And I get the feeling a lot of players would agree with that, too.
Well, I would hope so, because, you know, he's always backed them. He's never come down on anybody hard, talks to them in a calm manner, and that's the way the team goes about their business.
Bob, thank you, and good luck tonight.
Okay, thanks.
First base coach Bob Baylor of the Toronto Blue Jays. Now let's go back to Sports Desk.
Thanks, Rod. We'll get back to you once again when Sports Desk continues after this message. And we're also going to look at preparations underway to make sure the celebrations don't get out of hand if the Jays win tonight.
This is the factory of a leading North American tire maker. They make excellent tires with the kind of traction and mileage life you need. In fact, they're so good, we chose them to make Motomaster tires for Canadian Tire. So why don't we identify them? Maybe they're concerned that if you knew they also make Motomaster tires, which come with a nationwide road hazard warranty at no additional charge and a great Canadian Tire price, everybody will buy Motomaster tires. Maybe they're right. Motomaster, Canada's #1 selling replacement tires.
The way imports are priced these days, they're getting harder and harder to get into. Unless it's a 93 Hyundai Sonata. Now it's easy to get into luxury features with more room, more comfort, and more power. Or get into the 93 Elantra with room for 5 and a larger, more powerful 1.8-liter engine. Plus, all Hyundais are now covered by one of the best warranties in the business. The 93s from Hyundai.
Welcome back, and once again, let's get right back down to Skydome and join Rod Smith as the Jays and Braves prepare for what could be the last game of the 1992 season. Rod, what's the mood of the Braves at this stage? I get the feeling that they must be close to desperation.
It was a very quiet locker room last night, Jim. Not many Braves wanted to talk, and even the ones that did talk didn't really have much to say. I think they know that teams can come back from adversity. Certainly they have. Case in point, the Pittsburgh Pirates in Game 7 in Atlanta just about a week and a half ago. But this is a little bit different, they sense, because no matter what they do, it seems the Toronto Blue Jays are doing just one better. You got to consider the runs here. Total World Series run so far, Toronto 11, Atlanta 10. It is that close a World Series, and yet the Braves are down 3-1. Think of unprecedented sporting moments in this country. You think of something like Team Canada, Russia, 1972. I don't think this rivals that. That was Canadian players then. These are by and large Americans, but it is still a very big moment in Canadian sports history, I would think. And as Mark Bunting reports, fans are showing that all over the place.
Well, we're down here at Don Cherry's on Peter Street, just outside the Dome. Look at this lineup. This goes right outside onto the street. And I think does my TSN flash let me in? No? No? No. We're okay, all right. You guys are so close here. You going to get in?
Oh, yeah, we're going to get in.
Okay. And what brings you down?
Just the excitement of the watch of the Blue Jays winning the World Series.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, we will.
Well, let's head inside here. Sir, what do you think of all this?
Oh, we're winning it tonight. We're sweeping. Yeah, Toronto Jays.
Well, I don't know. Atlanta might take it.
Well, I don't
Who
know.
knows?
Well, gotta go back to Atlanta. How are you guys going to celebrate tonight?
Oh, we'll wait till they win and we'll find out then.
Oh, it's incredible. We don't need the Olympics. We don't need nothing. We got the Jays here. Because this is it. Americans can have the flag upside down. It doesn't matter. We got class. We got the Jays. We're #1.
How are you going to celebrate tonight?
Properly, you know, in the proper Christian spirit.
Dignity and class.
Absolutely. You've got the right idea. I think everybody here has the same dignity and class that I do, and we'll keep it well contained in a proper Canadian fashion.
Perfect.
Jays! Yeah!
Jays clinching tonight?
I think so. I think so.
You think so?
And surprising shock ending. Okay, Rance is going to hit a home run in the 9th, and the stopper tonight is going to be John Olerud in his first pitching appearance. actually his second pitching appearance for the Jays because he warmed up a couple of years ago.
So what does he think of all this noise?
Well, she's never been on the main street, and she gave me 5 taps. She says in the 5th.
You thought Don Cherry's was raucous? This is the lineup outside the Hard Rock Cafe. And as you can see, I think these people are going to have a little fun tonight. I don't think I have to say much more. Mark Bunting, TSN, in Toronto.
Uh-oh, I think we lost Mark. We'll have to search for him later on. Jim, couldn't get your tickets last night, but I did manage a pair for tonight. They're right... I'll get back to you.
I've already got them, Rod. They're safely put away, and they're in the outfield, and they was offered $500 for them earlier today, but there's no way these will be sold. Now, if the Jays do clinch tonight, the city of Toronto will definitely erupt. The party will start immediately and will undoubtedly spill onto the streets and fill the downtown center core. Everyone will be out to celebrate, and city officials want to make sure that everyone has a good time. Nobody gets hurt, and nothing gets damaged. Here's Teresa Hergert.
Yonge Street was pretty quiet today, just normal business day traffic. But tonight around 11 o'clock, Toronto Blue Jays fans could turn this street into a huge celebration. Should it happen, city police say that they'll be ready.
You'll see some foot patrol officers, you'll see uniformed car officers, you'll see plainclothes officers. There will be motorcycle officers from the winged wheels, mounted officers, and our public order unit, which is a proactive unit that has just recently come up with the force.
Police may be taking extra precautions, but they're not expecting riots or vandalism. Looking back to when the Jays clinched the AL East and the ALCS, they say that the fans were well behaved and no arrests were made. Local businessmen on Yonge Street aren't worried, and hospitals aren't taking any extra precautions either.
At the moment, we have no plans in place to increase our staff, but if the need occurs and we see that things are getting out of hand, we'll make the necessary calls and bring people in.
Should the Blue Jays win the World Series tonight, plans have already been made for the parade. It's scheduled to start at 1 o'clock here on Front Street. It'll wind its way through downtown Toronto and then end up at the Sky Dome. But the route and the plans for this parade have upset the mayor of Toronto.
I'm disappointed, and I think a lot of people are disappointed that we're not doing what we generally do, which is the great parade up Bay Street and the big celebration in the square, because the square can hold thousands upon thousands of people, far more than can be held in the dome.
We're going to follow the suggestion and the recommendation of the Metro Police Force that a safe route would be up York Street, north to Wellington from Front Street, and then west on Wellington to Peter Street, and south on Peter into the Sky Dome. That's on the event of a victory.
The plans are ready, but tonight it'll be up to the Blue Jays. They are just one game away from the largest celebration this city has ever seen. Teresa Herger, TSN, Toronto.
Thank you, Teresa. It is a pleasure to welcome ESPN baseball commentator Chris Berman to On the Beat today. Chris, it's been quite a series so far, but is this the night that it ends? Does it end tonight?
Yes, I said so at 01. I said so Sunday afternoon that I thought that if Toronto got Game 2 in Atlanta, that they close them out here at Skydome. Not as if they've been unbelievably better than the Atlanta Braves. I mean, heck, all these one-run victories, half of them, two-thirds of them coming in their last at-bat. But I think you have a major evening here in Toronto on your hands.
Chris, I couldn't help but notice in the Atlanta paper prior to the start of the World Series, the headline that said, quote, quotation marks, it's our game, but that's debatable.
It's everyone's game. Baseball isn't, I mean, it's primarily played in the United States. But it doesn't, I mean, Toronto has a team. You see, I mean, I know that was a big theme at the start of the series, Jim, but and then the flag thing escalated it. But the way everybody reacted up here, and the whole country should be commended, and I've said so for a couple of nights now, I'm not so sure that every city in the U.S. could have pulled off what Toronto did here before the game in game number 3. Now it's just, hey, if Toronto is the better team in the World Series, then congratulations. It's not our game, their game, your game. We're all baseball fans. I think that's overplayed at this point.
Well said. Destiny. Is this a team of destiny?
Well, a team of destiny is hard to say. I mean, they certainly are due. But yet those Jays that always, you know, folded at the end, or that image of that, I mean, that's been long erased. I mean, there are hardly any of them left. Even if, well, let's put it mildly. I mean, if they lose from 3-1 up and they lose 4-3, of course you're going to hear those stories again. But if you consider what they did in Game 4 of the ALCS, I mean, the Alomar homer and the comeback, that's one of the great comebacks in a postseason game that any of us can remember. Game 2 with Ed Ocean Sprague with the home run. I mean, Game 3 winning it in the last at bat as well, the Candyman. You know, this team has come back and come back and come back. But you know what I liked about Game 4 last night, Jim, was it was a night for the old guys. It was a night for the guys that were the Jays that, quote, couldn't get it done. Jimmy Key, Dwayne Ward, Tom Henke. That ovation for Key when he left after 7 2/3 was as warm an ovation as I've heard in that sort of situation. It was as if, thanks for everything you've done. It's good that the old Jays are here to celebrate with the new Jays.
Chris, it's a topic we could talk for hours on, but we're out of time. Thanks.
I have that habit of running long. Good to see you, Jim, or talk with you.
Thanks again to Chris Berman. We'll be back with a minute on... You're watching TSN, the sports network.